Is this clean to you? Are you blind? Amanda's voice was a whip crack in the hushed quiet of the executive floor. The janitorial supervisor glared at Jordan, the new hire, her face a mask of contempt. Jordan glanced at the polished glass of the conference table. "I just cleaned it," he said, his voice even. Without a word, Amanda snatched a full cup of coffee from a nearby tray. With a flick of her wrist, she sent the dark liquid arcing across the tabletop. It splattered against the glass and dripped in thick brown rivulets onto the pristine floor. She crossed her arms, her eyes boring into him. "Now, clean it again." This was Kingsley Enterprises, a multi-million-dollar real estate and investment empire whose gleaming tower was a monument to corporate success. Every morning, its glass doors admitted a stream of employees in crisp suits carrying expensive briefcases, their movements radiating an air of untouchable importance. But earlier that week, a different figure had arrived. A single motorbike had cut through the polished silence, and from it stepped Jordan Carter. Dressed in a simple hoodie, dark jeans, and carrying a worn backpack, he looked like a man who had taken a wrong turn. What no one knew was that he was not lost. He was home. Jordan was the firstborn son of the company's billionaire owner, the rightful heir to the entire empire. He had spent years abroad, building his knowledge, becoming a man his late mother would have been proud of. In his absence, his father, Robert Kingsley, had remarried and the company had thrived. But Jordan had heard whispers. Rumors of discrimination, of unfair promotions, of minorities being treated like second-class citizens within his father's legacy. So he had come not as a boss, but as a nobody, to see the truth with his own eyes. The moment he had walked toward the entrance, he'd felt the weight of their stares. Employees in designer suits eyed him with confusion. The receptionists exchanged loaded glances. And then there was Kevin Matthews. A senior operations manager, Kevin was a tall, stocky man with slicked-back hair and an attitude that reeked of entitlement. He prided himself on maintaining the company's standards, which to him meant ensuring that only people who looked the part belonged. And Jordan did not look the part. As he reached the glass doors, Kevin had stepped forward, a smirk creeping onto his lips. "Deliveries are around back, friend." It was the first test. Jordan could have ended it right there, could have revealed himself and watched the man's arrogance crumble. But not yet. Instead, he'd offered a slow, knowing smile. "Actually, I'm not here for a delivery. I was hoping you might have a job opening. I'll take anything." Kevin's eyebrows shot up. He looked Jordan up and down as if inspecting something he'd found on the bottom of his shoe. Nearby employees chuckled. "A job?" Kevin snorted. "Here?" When Jordan simply nodded, Kevin let out a mocking laugh. "I don't think we're hiring." He began to turn away, but Jordan pressed on. "Are you sure? Any available position?" With an exaggerated sigh, Kevin gestured to a receptionist. "Check the system. See if there's something suitable." The receptionist's fingers danced across her keyboard, a smirk playing on her lips. "Well," she said, her voice laced with condescension, "the janitorial team is hiring." The air grew thick with silent amusement. Kevin turned back to Jordan, his grin widening. "So what do you say? You wanted an opportunity." Jordan felt their stares, their quiet laughter, their assumption that he was just another desperate man. He tilted his head, and with a calm that unsettled them, he smiled. "I'll take it." The laughter that erupted was loud and unrestrained. They thought it was a joke. They had no idea they had just handed the next CEO of Kingsley Enterprises a front-row seat to the rot festering within his own company. The real test had only just begun. From the moment he put on the uniform, Jordan was treated as if he were invisible, a piece of furniture meant to scrub and polish their world. And no one made that clearer than his new supervisor, Amanda Whitmore. To her, Jordan was beneath notice, and she made it her mission to remind him of it at every turn. If he mopped a hallway, it wasn't clean enough. If he wiped down a desk, it was streaky. She didn't just correct him. She humiliated him, loudly, in front of anyone who would listen. "Are you stupid?" she'd sneered one afternoon. "What do you think you're doing?" she'd snap as he worked. Kevin Matthews, meanwhile, made tormenting Jordan a personal hobby. He would walk through freshly cleaned halls and drop trash on the floor. He'd spill coffee by accident, and then call out, "Boy, get over here and clean this up." Some employees laughed along with him. Others remained silent, their eyes averted. But a few watched Jordan with a strange curiosity. They saw something that didn't add up. A posture too confident for a janitor. A presence too calm for a man being openly mocked. The abuse continued, day after day, until the moment Amanda took it one step too far. It was in the executive conference room, with a freshly cleaned table gleaming under the lights, that she picked up the cup of coffee. The dark liquid splattered across the glass. "Now," she commanded, her voice dripping with venom. "Clean it again." The room fell silent. Onlookers froze, their eyes wide with shock. For the first time, someone had gone too far, even for them. Jordan looked at the mess, then at Amanda's smug face. He inhaled slowly, and he smiled. The game was over. Just then, the receptionist's phone rang, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the tension. Her professional tone quickly dissolved into one of panic. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." She hung up, her face pale. "Mr. Kingsley is on his way up. Right now." A current of electricity shot through the office. Executives straightened their ties. Secretaries scurried to organize their desks. The big boss was coming. For Kevin Matthews, this was his moment. He imagined it already. A firm handshake, a confident discussion about quarterly growth, a well-deserved promotion. He didn't give the janitor another thought. The elevator dinged. The room went silent. Robert Kingsley emerged. A tall, commanding man in a sleek gray suit, his presence alone demanding respect. As he walked to the center of the floor, Kevin puffed out his chest. Amanda adjusted her blouse, a hopeful smile fixed on her face. "Ladies and gentlemen," Robert began, his voice smooth and powerful, "today is a very special day. For years, I have built this company with the hope of leaving behind a legacy of greatness, success, and, most importantly, integrity." A few people shifted uncomfortably. "And today," Robert continued, a proud smile spreading across his face, "I am proud to announce that my firstborn son is officially here in the building to take my place as CEO." A confused murmur swept through the room. Firstborn son? Kevin's mind raced. He'd never met Robert's son. Who could it be? His eyes darted around, settling on a young, well-dressed executive from the finance department. Of course. That made perfect sense. But then Robert spoke again, and the words shattered their reality. "My son is already here." He scanned the crowd, his gaze finally landing in the corner of the room. His voice rang with pride. "Jordan, come here." Time stopped. Every head turned. Kevin's confident smirk froze, then melted from his face. Amanda gasped, her hand flying to her chest, because there, still in his janitor's uniform, still holding a cleaning rag, was Jordan. He stepped out of the shadows, his expression calm, his eyes sharp and focused. The man they had ignored, mocked, and treated like dirt was walking toward the center of the room to stand beside the billionaire owner. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of dawning horror. Kevin's face drained of all color. Amanda looked as though she might faint. They had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Jordan took his place next to his father. He let the silence hang for a moment longer, his gaze sweeping over the sea of stunned faces, memorizing each one. Then, he spoke. "My name is Jordan Carter Kingsley," he said, his voice carrying a weight of authority that no one had ever heard from him before. "I am the firstborn son of Robert Kingsley, and as of today, I am your new CEO." He paused, letting the truth settle like a stone in the silent room. "For the past few days, I have worked in this building as a janitor, and I've seen everything. I wanted to see how this company, my company, treats people when they think no one is watching." His eyes landed directly on Kevin. Kevin gulped. "And what I saw," Jordan continued, his voice dropping slightly, "was not only disappointing, it was disgusting. Kevin Matthews." Kevin flinched as if struck. His breathing grew shallow and quick. Jordan took a deliberate step toward him. "You assumed I was a nobody. You mocked me, laughed in my face, and you did it with such confidence. Because you thought you were untouchable." Kevin's hand began to shake. He tried to speak, to salvage what little dignity he had left, but before a sound could escape, Jordan raised a hand. Kevin's mouth snapped shut. Then Jordan turned his head, his gaze falling upon Amanda. A hot blush flooded Amanda's face. Her eyes darted around the room, desperately searching for an escape, for a lifeline, for anything. She found nothing. Jordan tilted his head. And you, he said, his voice deceptively soft. Amanda sucked in a sharp breath. You threw coffee across a table and made me clean it up. She squeezed her eyes shut, as if to block out the memory. Jordan let the weight of his words sink into the suffocating silence. Then he spoke one last time. Let me ask you something. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. If you had known who I was from the start, would you have treated me differently? Silence. A long, painful silence stretched across the room. And then Amanda nodded, a slow, shameful admission. Jordan's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. Because now the power was in his hands. For a moment, for just a brief, agonizing moment, Kevin hoped that this was all a dream, a nightmare. Because this couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. He had spent days belittling Jordan Carter, treating him like he was less than human. And now, standing before him, wearing the same janitor's uniform they had mocked, was a man who could end his entire career with a single word. Jordan turned, slowly scanning the room. His eyes landed on each and every employee, memorizing their faces. Some of them had stood by and watched, some had laughed along, but one or two had shown kindness. And that would not be forgotten, because Jordan had been watching everything. His gaze finally locked back onto Kevin. After what felt like an eternity, Jordan spoke. Kevin Matthews. The words cut through the silence like a blade. Kevin flinched, his hands clenched into fists at his sides, his entire body stiff with fear. He knew what was coming, but still, he had to try. Sir, Kevin stammered, forcing a shaky, pathetic smile onto his face. I had no idea. Jordan raised a single hand. Kevin's mouth snapped shut. Because the thing about power is you know instantly when you've lost it. And Kevin had just lost everything. Jordan took another step forward. Let me ask you something, Kevin, he said, his voice smooth, calm, deadly. Kevin swallowed hard. Jordan tilted his head slightly. If you had known who I was, he continued, would you have treated me the way you did? Kevin froze. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. He had no answer, because they both knew the truth. Kevin lowered his head. His voice was barely a whisper. I didn't know. Jordan smirked. I know, he said simply. That was the entire point. Because Kevin hadn't been cruel because he was having a bad day. He hadn't been disrespectful because he was stressed. No, Kevin had belittled Jordan because he thought he was beneath him. And that was something Jordan would never forget. Or forgive. Then Jordan's eyes moved to Amanda. She had been standing frozen, her hands gripping the edge of her dress as if it were the only thing keeping her from collapsing. And now, those terrified eyes were locked onto his. Amanda tried to smile. Sir, I was just following company policy, she blurted out. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Company policy? Amanda nodded quickly, desperate. Yes, sir. I was just... Jordan cut her off. Throwing coffee across a table? Amanda's face turned ghostly pale. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. There was no excuse. Jordan let the moment hang in the air, let the weight of their actions crush them. Then he turned to his father. Robert Kingsley had been watching this entire scene unfold without a single word, his expression unreadable. And for the first time in his career, Robert Kingsley was ashamed. Ashamed of what his company had become, ashamed of the employees he had trusted, ashamed that his own son had been treated like this by the very people who were supposed to represent his legacy. And now he was about to set things right. Robert stepped forward. He looked at Kevin, then at Amanda, then at his son. Finally, he sighed. Jordan, Robert said slowly, what do you think should be done? Kevin visibly trembled. Amanda clutched her hands together, pleading silently with her eyes. And Jordan did not hesitate. Fire them. Robert nodded. Kevin Matthews, he said, his voice calm but final. Your employment in this company is terminated, effective immediately. Kevin's knees nearly buckled. No, he choked out. No, sir. Please, Robert ignored him, turning to Amanda. Amanda Whitmore, your position as supervisor is revoked. You are no longer employed here. Amanda let out a silent scream, her face contorting in disbelief. She spun to Jordan, her eyes wide, desperate. Sir, please, I didn't mean. Jordan held up his hand, and Amanda's words died in her throat. And just like that, it was done. Kevin and Amanda had spent days humiliating a man. Now, in a matter of minutes, they were the ones with nothing left. But Jordan wasn't finished. He turned to the other employees, and then he smiled. Not all of you stayed silent, he said. At that moment, one employee stepped forward. It was Linda, the one person who had stood up for Jordan when no one else would. Now, she was about to be rewarded. Jordan turned to his father. My first decision as CEO, he announced, is to promote Linda, effective immediately. Gasps rippled through the room. Linda's eyes filled with tears of shock and gratitude, and just like that, a sense of balance had been restored. For days, Jordan Carter had watched the way they treated him, watched how they laughed, watched as they stripped him of his dignity, believing he had none to begin with. Now, the truth had been revealed. Kevin Matthews, gone. Amanda Whitmore, disgraced. And the rest of the employees? They were about to hear the most important words of their lives. Because this wasn't just about one man's victory. This was about changing a system that allowed such toxicity to exist in the first place. The silence in the room was deafening. The same employees who had once laughed, who had whispered behind his back, now couldn't even meet his eye. Jordan stood tall, still in his janitor's uniform, holding the same quiet, powerful presence. But now, no one doubted who he was. Today, he was their leader. He took a step forward, then another. The weight of the moment settled over the room as he slowly scanned every single face. Finally, he spoke. Respect. One word, but it cut through the air like thunder. He let it sit there for a moment, let them feel it. Then he continued. Respect is not something that should be reserved for a select few. It is not dictated by a title, by the clothes a person wears, or the job they perform. Respect should be the foundation of everything we do, because without it, we become exactly what we witnessed this week. A few employees lowered their heads, the guilt finally sinking in. I have walked these halls, invisible to you. I have been ignored, belittled, insulted. He glanced toward the conference room table where Amanda had made her cruel display. I have been forced to clean up messes that were created just to humiliate me. The weight of his words settled like bricks on their shoulders. He saw it, he felt it, but he wasn't done. And through all of it, I have learned one thing. A pause. Every breath in the room was held. The people who tear others down do it because they are afraid. Jordan nodded. Afraid of change, afraid of equality, afraid of a world where power is not determined by privilege, but by integrity. The air crackled with electricity. He was right, and everyone in that room knew it. That ends today. You could hear a pin drop. These weren't just words. This was a promise. Jordan turned to his father, the man who had built this company from the ground up and who had just learned that some of his people had been running it into the ground. Robert Kingsley nodded once. He wasn't just looking at his son. He was looking at the future. Effective immediately, Jordan announced, his voice ringing with authority. This company will be implementing new policies to ensure that discrimination has no place in our offices. There will be accountability, there will be consequences, and there will be change. Then he did something no one expected. He smiled, a genuine smile, because this wasn't about revenge, it was about building something better. This company will no longer be built on arrogance, he declared. It will be built on respect, on fairness, and on the belief that we all rise when we lift each other up. And just like that, the entire culture of the company shifted. In that moment, they didn't just see Jordan as their CEO, they saw him as their leader. And for the first time, they knew This company was finally in the right hands. Jordan turned back to his father. Robert Kingsley took a deep breath, his chest rising with pride. He stepped forward and did something he had never done before in front of his employees. He shook his son's hand. It was a declaration, a public acknowledgement, an unspoken truth. This company now belonged to Jordan Carter, and it was time to rewrite its history. That is how you change the world. Not with revenge, not with anger, but with power. Real power. The kind that doesn't just break systems, it builds something better in their place. What do you think? Did Jordan make the right decision? Should he have been more forgiving, or did he handle it perfectly? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, click that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next.